I just want to say that we are thrilled that he's been elected as the new mayor, as a citizen advocate, and I'd like you to join me in welcoming Dr. Bobby Dyer.
And I appreciate you being here. This is going to be the first of a series of meet and greets with the new mayor guy. I've published out now is going to be, I'm trying to get to every district in the city. You know, this was kind of a campaign promise that I made a while ago. You know, part of the reason that I got elected, I think, is a lot of people that live in Bayside, Centerville, Kentsville, Rose Hall felt disenfranchised from the government. And you know, so we're going to build those bridges. And we're going to make people part of the process. And we're going to do that in a positive way. And number one question I get is, how do you feel? And the word I use is humble. And I say that in all sincerity. This was a true grassroots effort. We were outspent quite a bit. And I can't tell you how many people I am grateful to. I mean, I have police officers, firemen, the African American, political action committee, the members of this group, and everything working polls for me. It is humbling. You don't do this by yourself. I really think that this election was about Joe Sixpack and their family just wanting to get out and get, not a dramatic change in government, but maybe pointed in a little better direction that might be a little bit more citizen focused. And now I have a 2-year interview, with the public to deliver on some of the things that I am going to try to do. But we must be confronted with the reality that even as the mayor in our form of government, I'm but one of 11. And I think one of the challenges that I'm going to have and we're going to have as a council is that we're going to have a whole new chemistry come January. We're going to have new people out there. And I think one of the challenges I'm going to have and we're going to have as a council is getting the unity and getting a vision and a direction we could all agree with or work with and act on behalf of the public in the way that the public expects. And we're going to recommend some changes going forward. Yeah, I think that people spoke to that with the results of the election. And I'm delighted that my friend and colleague Louis Jones is back. And I'll tell you what, his business acumen, his experience is going to be invaluable, going forward. So the thing is, we can't get too specific on things right now because we're kind of in a transition area. We just got a couple more weeks that we have, going to, when we go into the transition. But even when you get one new person on council, there is a change in chemistry, but we've got a couple new people coming on. We had a historic election where we had 8 seats open. And then you combine that with the school board, it was like a rugby scrum out there. And I'm going to be honest, we, like many cities, villages, hamlets in this country, are going to be confronted with a number of challenges. Hurricane Matthew really exposed that we have a problem that we must address. This is not going to be a 5-year, 15-year, 50-year problem. This is going to be a lifelong problem going forward. And many of the cities, I've been talking to mayors in other cities already that are confronted with the same problem. This is going to be costly, it's going to be expensive, and we've got to figure out how to navigate that. A number of us made commitments to public safety to make sure that they're adequately compensated. We've got to do that. But when you think about it also, I think we have 85 schools in Virginia Beach. A number of them are really in bad repair. We still got the road infrastructure problems and things that we got to take care of. But to do this, we got to create new revenue. We can't be going to the trough of the taxpayer. One of the advantages I have, being a home care physical therapist, I was asked by somebody recently, how'd you get into physical therapy? And is it a passion? And yes, it has been a passion. I went into physical therapy. I went into the, I always had a joke that I told on the campaign trail that one of my, Andy Warhol claims to fame is I dropped out of the same high school in New Jersey that Jerry Lewis, the comedian, dropped out. Went into the Marine Corps in 1968 and got out in 72. But I went to visit a friend of mine that was wounded in Vietnam at the Philadelphia VA hospital. And I was in the wound ward, and boy, was that eye-opening. And I knew I had to do something in the medical field, and due to my, I actually had ADHD before they knew what it was, back in the 50s and 60s, and I couldn't do math, so medical school was not even a consideration. So I actually went to work at an inner city hospital in New Jersey, St. Elizabeth's Hospital, and worked as an emergency room security guard midnight to 8. I'll tell you, you go from boredom to panic in 1 second, when an ambulance pulls in. And I got to see a lot. I got to see about people that, that were in trauma and trouble. So, I gravitated towards physical therapy. I got accepted. I'll have you know I was rejected by some of the finest physical therapists. Okay, no one, even though I got this PhD thing, nobody still will ever call me an academic, okay? And, so I got into St. Louis University, Jesuit school, of course, and I became a physical therapist. And I've been practicing on and off, since 1976. And that's what I do for a living. And, right from here, I got 5 patients before I got another 3 o'clock event, and I got to make another drop by for a store owner that I made a commitment to. Because, something we got to value small business. And even just by dropping by, I think is pretty important. But, what it's given me is a tremendous amount of insight on how people in Virginia Beach live. When I was working on my doctorate in the 90s, I was doing home care. And let me tell you about technology back then. I was so grateful to have a beeper. Oh my God, that was technology plus back then, wasn't it? Okay? And now I got a phone that talks to me, makes coffee, I think, everything else. Times have changed. But I've been in literally thousands of homes in Virginia Beach, in North, in Portsmouth, everywhere. And I see what people go through. I'm in mansions and I'm on roach-infested trailer parks. I see it all. I see elderly disabled taking care of their elderly disabled spouse because they can't afford to go to a nursing home or a place like this, where we're at right now. I see people struggling to pay their water bill and or buy medicine. I see it, okay? So I'm very sensitive to it. But once again, we got to balance. We have tremendous needs as a city that somehow got to be paid for. And I think what we got to do is change the business climate. And right now there's a perception out there, real or imagined, but somewhat real. And talking to a lot of people, even some of my colleagues agree. It's tough to do business in the city of Virginia Beach. We're going to change that culture, I hope. But once again, please realize, I got to work collaboratively with everybody else. The way government works in our government, you got to get 5 friends to get at least 6 green lights. So you got to build a team. You got to build that esprit de corps, as we used to say back in the Marine Corps. That team concept. And, so going forward, that's something, that we have to do and work collaboratively. So the first challenge, or opportunity, let's not call it a challenge, is to get the council together. And, once again, we can't control what goes on in Washington with the tenor up there. But by golly, we can control the tenor that we have right here in Virginia Beach. Let's restore civility back to the public square. Let's get mutual respect. But we have to earn respect. You just can't demand it. And, going forward, there's going to be the challenges. The truth is, every time you vote, you're making somebody mad, whether you like it or not, okay? But the thing is, let's always take the time to explain to people why we're voting a certain way you know, what our rationale is and everything. I know I voted sometimes in this group, you know, said, Bob, what are you doing? But at least I always try to explain it. And it will always be my hopes that doing things based on principle and what's best for the city. Because once again, even as mayor, you got to see both sides of an argument. And you know, once again, to make sure that the issue being discussed is being translated properly to the public, because you are the people that we work for. So I got a new role right now. And it's important that, you know, I'm going to be the voice of the city in many ways. I'm going to be representing you in many ways, as Lewis did so nobly before in his career as mayor and recently as interim mayor. And, you know, I got to build that team, but once again, I came up with a saying over the years: good government should never fear an engaged and educated public. We should embrace it. And I believe that, because if we have the ability to tap into the resources, you know how much intellectual capital that we have living in this city, retired admirals, retired generals, retired CEOs, all that had to do, you know, had to make those tough decisions to survive in the corporate world. A number of years ago, we had a blue ribbon task force on revenues and expenditures, and I had Captain Tom Keeley, former CEO of Oceana. He was the CEO when we went on the blacklist. And let me tell you one thing about Lewis Jones. He invited me to come to a meeting when we were put on the blacklist. And we had a meeting with Bob Scott, Les Willey, and the Navy folks, and we crafted the plan that came up with the template that not only saved Oceana, but we are now a national standard of how the locality deals with Oceana, okay? And, you know, so I give Lewis a lot of credit. He was a master negotiator then and a lot of other things. But the point is, let's put it this way. We are a good city, and we got situations where advocacy groups like yours are invaluable to make sure that we are held accountable. And that's why I will always come, and I've always come over 14 years. Whenever what I was asked, I will always show up. I'm going to be out in the village quite a bit. I've been telling people I'm going to be the 6'2" version of Myra Ogendorf. Okay? I'm going to be out there. And you know, put it this way, there's sometimes a bittersweet, you know, relationship. It was a couple weeks ago, I did the coin toss at the field house, you know, Ocean Lakes and Oscar Smith. What an honor. But the next morning, I was at the funeral of a police officer. That's what mayors and that's what council people do. You know, we're part of the community. And we're not always going to make everybody happy. W.C. Fields once said, if you try to make everybody happy, nobody's going to be happy. But as long as we explain ourselves, and one of the things I would like to do that is picking up traction in a way, and I've been talking to some of my colleagues, is the way we do the budget process. And I spoke to that the last time I was here. And to me, it doesn't make sense to have public hearings on it, you know, once it's already kind of published and out there. Let's get you together. You know, we did this a couple of years ago where we had people, you come in and sit around and talk about your priorities, what your priorities. Let's do that before we go to the retreat. And so then we can talk about it at the retreat, and we can give better direction to the city manager on what we want to see in the budget. It's a simple procedural thing, but it's a policy of inclusion. And the other thing is we want to make sure we have a level playing field. And I don't begrudge anybody in the development community that, you know, it's used in every city, everywhere, that people use leverage to get things done. But let's treat everybody the same way. Let's welcome any business that wants to come here and roll things out. And to make sure our planning department, you know, goes through duty with due diligence, but, you know, do it in a timely fashion and make the processes more user-friendly to the public. So I think a good goal would be that I will discuss with my council folks and the city staff. Let's become the culture of positivity. Let's become the city of yes, we can do it. Let's bring in the new wealth, the small businesses. Now, one of the things I always, remark on, how a small business can merge into a big business if given the opportunity. And I use the example of why not pizza. Now, guess what? 25 years ago, Tony and Harry, may I say they're from New Jersey, but don't hold that against them, okay, came here and opened up one pizza place. Now I believe they own 8. They have a mentorship program where they bring people through and train them. The gentleman that runs the Lansdowne Why Not is from the Bronx, and he is now an equity partner in the business, and they're looking to go to a national franchise. This is the type of business and entrepreneurship that we can, embrace. And then right now, we just recently appointed a gentleman by the name of Taylor Adams to take over economic development. Let me tell you what a stellar guy that this is. I worked with him. He was our purchasing guy recently, and he worked with us a lot on the process improvement task force and with the Minority Business Council and trying to create that, level playing field for everybody. And let me just say, even, the city does do a lot of good things. And if you take a look at the Minority Business Council, is it an advocacy group? Sure it is, but it also includes small business, minorities, veterans, disabled, trying to give everybody, an equal start and, access to what's going on. We've run training seminars for them, how to fill out applications, and how maybe to get a couple small businesses, to combine to, do a joint application so they would qualify. But the city does a lot of really good things. But once again, I think that we now have the ability, and to me it's a no-brainer, by bringing the public into the discussion as we go forward and have these tough decisions. Help us guide us with the decisions. Now, ultimately, the council are the ones that do decide. But I really think the more data points that we have from the public and maybe some outside things. I'm a big believer in getting data from some of the universities, and things of that nature. I mean, Dr. Cook is brilliant, and we just got to learn how other cities do best practices and everything. But we're going to have challenges out there. And I'm going to give you one challenge that a lot of people aren't thinking about right now. When I was teaching over at Regent University, there was a gentleman on faculty with me by the name of Vernon Clark. And he is the former chief of naval operations. He is one of the smartest guys ever. And he would give us lectures, a couple of years ago about the fact that our country no longer has the capacity to fight conflicts on 3 different fronts because of lack of materials. We actually had, Louis can tell you, a couple of years ago, a group of admirals and generals came in front of us and said, we can't get parts for aircraft, and we can't get training for our pilots. But, we can actually leverage a lot of this capital and take advantage of the knowledge that we have as a people and ask you what the priorities are to help us make those tough decisions. So that's one of the things we're going to go for. Right now, like I said, I just got sworn in a couple of weeks ago. I got sworn in because it was a special election with the mayor stepping down. This is a little bit of a transition time. But, the first week in January, I start my interview with you over the next 2 years. And you'll decide if I'm rehired or not. And if I'm not rehired, it's not going to be for lack of effort or transparency or lack of trying. But the one thing I can assure you going forward, if I am asked to come to speak to anybody, I reached out to a lot of people in the election. There was no trough that our campaign team did not drink out of. We spoke to Democrats.